Dudes like Houdini. Seriously, when the going gets tough, you don't want a criminal lawyer, right? You want a criminal lawyer. Know what I'm saying?
Saul, Saul, you better call Saul. He'll fight for your rights when your back's to the wall. Take it to the man, justice for all. You better call Saul. You best call now, you hear?
All right, I got.
Wait, this is the actual recording?
This is the actual recording
Okay.
for Journey with Jimmy, a Better Call Saul podcast. Because my God, those last two openings were kind of wolf.
Y'all, we suck at what we do.
This is the best one, unfortunately. Okay, we're talking about season 2, episodes 1 through 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, and going into this season, I can't remember. I don't know if I was paying attention. Season 1, all the episodes kind of had a particular naming scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Does season 2 have a naming scheme?
I just found out about season 2's naming scheme today.
All right, let's hear it.
I'm gonna leave it to you to figure out.
No.
Look at the first word of every episode title, and then if you scramble it, there's a message, and
Fuck.
we'll
That's
see.
interesting.
We'll see if you can get it. But for now, let's start with episode 1, Switch. Like the Nintendo product, Bradley's favorite.
That's my best.
That was pretty
that's my
good.
best attempt at the sound effect.
Also sounds kind of like a wave. Anyways, we're doing something a little different this time. We were going
fuck.
scene by scene chronologically in the past. I want to try something a little different, where most episodes have 2 to 3 stories. Sometimes they combine, sometimes they don't.
Oh yeah.
I've broken up the scenes into the 2 storylines. In most of these episodes we're going through have 2, and coincidentally, they're usually Jimmy or Mike storylines. So we're gonna split them into 2, and then I will go through those scenes chronologically and see how that goes. Maybe that'll smoothen things out, and that'll be the final optimization. You know, aside from getting good openings out of us, but that's kind of impossible.
Yeah, we're doing it'll be an experiment.
So season 2 opens up with a scene where we see Gene again. Did y'all think you guys would see more of this guy?
No. I did not anticipate it.
How about you, Joe?
I thought Slug Boy ate some salt and died.
No, Gene. The first scene with
I know.
Saul in the
I
future.
did not expect him.
Joe, you are so horrible today to me. Okay. Anyways, Gene is here in the opening. So far, he's been in the first episode of both seasons. So maybe that's enough to notice a pattern, maybe not. But this scene is basically about him getting stuck in a trash room for hours, too afraid to open the door because he is terrified of the consequences of ringing an alarm.
Yeah.
And I guess the reasons why are pretty obvious. He is just terrified to get into any conflict with the law, no matter how minor.
Yeah.
Which is kind of pathetic because you go back in the past and you see who Jimmy was, and then you see who Gene was, and they're completely different people.
Yeah.
The one thing he can do is leave a very defiant SG was here with a Z on the wall.
What's interesting is that it's SG, not Jimmy or anything.
That is interesting, right?
Yeah.
What do you glean from that, if anything, yet?
That there comes a point where, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. There comes a point where like Jimmy just totally like throws away his identity as Jimmy, just becomes Saul. But I feel like he has so many like connections and ties. I don't see how that can happen. Because he has his brother Chuck, who is a well-known lawyer, and Hamlin, who is part of that lawyer office. Kim. I can see Kim getting shot though, so I can see her just dying.
Don't say these horrible
Pour
things.
one out for Kim preemptively.
Yeah. I can also see Chuck dying of like a heart attack or some shit.
Man, you guys are
That
grim.
motherfucker,
Hamlin moves away to like Wisconsin.
Wisconsin seems apt.
That does seem apt for some reason.
What else is there? He's with Mike and Better Call Saul, from what y'all have said.
Yes.
The other one is Davis and Maine. and either
Right.
A, they just fire him and burn every record of him away, or B, Jimmy burns the place to the ground. Either way, fire is involved.
Everybody, welcome to the Better Call Saul writing room.
Hi, it's me, Peter Gould. Joe is Vince Gilligan.
Yep.
And Bradley is one of the many other writers who also deserve all the credit.
But
Okay.
it's not important enough to be named.
Well, there's a lot of them.
I'm sure.
But we're back to Jimmy here after that opening. And we get to see the last scene of last season, but we get to see what actually happened, where Jimmy goes in, he talks to them, he's talking to Kim, he's like, do we have a future if I work here or not? And Kim answers with, it doesn't really matter what you do, Jimmy. You already have me, basically. And he walks out, and then we see the scene that we did see as the last scene, where Jimmy drives away, humming a song, and just decides to go live a badass life.
So, a few things from this scene. Number one, when I first witnessed the scene in season 1, I saw it as he like stopped in front of the door, kind of realized that he really just didn't want to do it and left.
Yeah.
He didn't like go up and talk to him. He just left.
Yeah. I
So
think
it's
it
just-
was shot that way, because like I
Yeah.
said, they weren't sure they were going to get a second season. So maybe that was the idea originally, and then they...
That's what it feels like,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
The other one about Kim is that I got more of the impression that Kim doesn't have like a, at this point didn't really know what she wanted to do with Jimmy at this moment, kind of deal, more than the "you have me," because it's for sure he has to go through that whole courtship for her later in this episode. So it kind of, to me, was more like Jimmy got to the point where he realized that he was probably doing this more for Kim than more for himself, which is why he wanted to leave it.
I think that's apt. That's a good point to touch on, because you get the sense that Jimmy was... Like, the only reason why he would want to work at Davis and Maine is to make Chuck proud and to be with Kim. And when he finds out that Kim doesn't really care one way or another, he just goes into fuck it mode.
Yeah. And I feel like that, I think we should bring that up later, because I think it makes an impact on their relationship for sure.
Yeah,
down the
because
line.
the next scene in this plot thread would be Kim checking up on Jimmy while he's floating on the pool. And as they go to talk at the restaurant, they con someone together.
I think that was the second time. I'm thinking in my, it's been I think 2 or 3 weeks since I've seen this episode.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute
Yeah,
for me.
he's here and she's at the restaurant. Yeah, it's that directly afterwards they do that.
Right. So,
Yeah, go ahead.
Bradley, did you notice the person that they were scamming? Did you recognize this man?
Is he the fucking asshole from Breaking Bad?
Yeah, he's Kim.
The asshole who shows up for like 5 minutes in one episode
Yeah,
that you never forget because he's such a fucking dick.
That's exactly him. He has a license plate that says Ken Wins, so
Yeah.
I call him Ken Wins. And
Oh.
Walter White blows up his car.
Yeah.
So that's what
So-
happens there. And yeah, this is good because this guy deserves to be scammed.
Yeah. And I don't know. This episode, particularly these group of 4 episodes, but this episode in particular, it was fun to watch Jimmy and Kim's relationship and the kind of nuances that are there. And I feel like everybody can get a different interpretation out of it. I was viewing a lot of this as Kim being a sort of tether, not just emotionally, but I think Jimmy's relationship with her right now in some way mirrors his relationship with the legal system and the law, because at the very end of the last season he's like, I don't know, he's like, I don't really know if I give a fuck about the law anymore. But and so we see in this first episode, for a lot of it he's not sure what he wants to do, but in the first few episodes of this season, Kim makes it clear where she draws the line. She's like, Jimmy, if you do this, no, like I'm not gonna stand for that.
Which we'll talk. I think that in episode 2 that has a prominent scene.
And this is usually enough to sway him. We see in this first episode, he has fun doing this con with her. He's like, look how fun it is to be bad a little bit and do this scam. Wasn't that fun? But I got the idea. He got the enjoyment out of it not because he was doing the scam, but because it was with her.
I think that's a good way to look at it.
He's calling her up and he's like, hey, there's another scam we can do. It's going to be a lot of fun. He's like, this is my life now. This is what I do.
Yeah.
But she doesn't bite.
Yeah.
And when she doesn't bite, he's like, Kim is what I want. And if he wants Kim and she's like a metaphor for the law, then that's when he takes the job with Davis and Maine. He's like, okay, maybe I'm not done. Maybe I can't let this go. Maybe that is what I want.
That's such a good take, Bradley. I love it. I think that's a really good way to look at this. There's a couple of things we could add to that, because maybe this is a two-way tether, because you can tell Kim enjoys conning Ken wins when she gets into it.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
So it's kind of like Kim pulls him towards the law, while Jimmy somewhat pulls her into the scum.
Yeah.
To me, it was just kind of like the way that they work together. It kind of highlighted, I think, what makes it's kind of like that attraction that Kim and Jimmy have towards each other. It kind of highlights what makes them be so attracted to each other, and kind of makes them also like off-putting. Is that like they work really well together, and they can bounce off of each other really well and sell something very like naturally, and they just know exactly what they need to do to help the other person out. But they both are like on the other sides of the coin when it comes with their morality and like how they view about society. So that's where your conflict is constantly coming from, and it's just kind of like it teases the audience and like, look, they can work together and be together, and like, and if they become cohesive enough, they can just be a really good thing. But they have just two different moral principles.
I'd say opposite side of the coin doesn't quite work, because I think that's Jimmy and Chuck.
Yeah,
like those are the opposite sides of the coin.
Right.
That's more like a coin and then like a complimentary dollar bill. That's Kim. There's a really good line here in their conversation in the restaurant. Doing the right thing has gotten me nowhere, says Jimmy. And when Jimmy says this, Kim takes a pause, and she realizes the same thing might be happening to her, where she's working harder and harder at her
job,
HHM job, yeah, I said it right. And it's not really getting her anywhere. And in fact, she's getting caught in these crossfires between Jimmy and Chuck and Howard. So I felt like that was kind of the tipping point to why she would go along with the con in my eyes. And at the end of the episode, Jimmy goes back and he accepts the job at Davis and Maine. He goes up to his office. He orders the Coca-Bolo desk, which he has referenced as wanting in the past. And then he flips the switch. What did y'all think of this scene where he flips that switch at the end?
To me, it's looking back, it's a nice little foreshadowing to what happens in episode 4. I think it's episode 4. But it's this idea that Jimmy's always going to be defiant, just to see what can happen when he does kind of push those boundaries or tries to go against something. Because that's kind of in his nature, is to see, like, to push those boundaries and kind of go how far he can without disrupting anything.
I think that's exactly it, yeah.
I was kind of viewing the sticky note as, it's also kind of another analogy for the law in general, where to Jimmy, it's more of a suggestion than anything. Like, obviously, he knows it's there for a reason. Like, somebody had some reasoning behind putting it there, but if it doesn't align with his interest, he's not necessarily going to follow it.
So here's the other thing too, if you have a switch, if you have a switch that cannot be turned on or off, it absolutely cannot be changed. I don't understand why you would even just keep the switch, or you would just figure out a way to completely stop it from being switched entirely. And I feel like that's also like,
I mean, maybe that would be a lot of money for them to do.
No.
Whatever. The point is the symbolism, and there's two other things I want to add here.
Well, I wasn't done.
Sorry, go ahead. You cut out there.
I was saying, like, I feel that this law department also kind of just, because it happens in season 4 where they get pissed off at Jimmy, but it just feels like that they don't there's just a sense of over trustworthiness, and I think this whole arrangement. Does that make sense?
Yes,
And
I mean, I feel like that grows over time, though. I don't think it's initially there.
yeah, but like, it's just like just once again like kind of like a leading foreshadow. But I just look at them like that's dumb. If I was in charge of that office, it's like you can't turn the switch off for any reason. Like, then get rid of the fucking switch.
But here's the thing, Joe. The
yeah.
Switch doesn't do anything as far as we see.
Right.
There's no
Right.
point to it. And I think the symbolism there is that Jimmy realizes I did a wrong and nothing happened. There was no repercussion. And I think that's
now.
kind of for now. And I think
now.
that's how he views things. It's like I'm gonna see if there's a repercussion. There isn't, and I'm just gonna live life.
But I think also it's like you don't know sometimes what you did wrong and how it affects people until much later.
I like that. I like that a lot because causality is a huge part of this show.
Yeah.
It's actually also a big part of Breaking Bad. They really like toying with the theme of like
Yeah, if
your actions and their consequences, even if they're ripples far away.
if you
Yeah, I kind of like that idea where it's like in having this switch kind of be a way to represent that idea where he doesn't see an immediate reason to not flip the switch, so he does it, but he never considers like, okay, why like what's the reasoning for not flipping the switch?
But the last thing I want to bring up about this switch, man, such a thematically
I know,
rich
this fucking switch.
switch on a wall.
Nintendo can make something so good.
I know, right? I never doubted them. The switch is actually a direct parallel. It's the last scene of the episode. It's a direct parallel from the first scene of the episode, where Jimmy is too afraid to push the door and flip the switch because of the repercussions. Even if they're like, there's a very low chance he would get in trouble, but he could not risk it. But that's Gene. Jimmy, on the other hand, will flip any switch just to see what happens because he's just that kind of defiant person.
That's a good parallel. I didn't catch
That's
that.
good.
And that wraps up our Jimmy portion of episode 1. Let's talk a little bit about Mike, who had less
Mike and
scenes.
Slug Boy, the ultimate adventure dynamic duo.
Mike and Daniel the Slugman are still working together. However, Daniel now has a massive yellow monstrosity of a car, which Mike is not cool with. So Daniel starts going to the meets alone. Nacho starts getting friendly in a way where it's like, oh, he's very obviously plotting something.
Yeah, except Gene is an idiot who
Not
doesn't
Gene.
understand.
Gene is
streets.
future Saul.
You mean Slug Boy?
Slug Boy is Daniel.
Oh wait, yeah, I was talking about Slug Boy.
So I really like Nacho's dialogue in the scene where he's alone with Daniel, where you can tell he's like disgusted by this car, but his dialogue's really reserved, where he's like finding ways to not diss it or say nice things about it. He's just like saying matter of fact things because he's trying his best to get on the friendly side. And
I like the part where Daniel is like, yeah, you could have one girl in a parka and one girl in a bikini. They'd both be comfortable. And he's like, yeah, you have two girls in here?
you pick up a lot of girls in this, huh? It's like,
He's like, yeah.
Did you notice his license plate?
doesn't it say playa?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my
a lot of
God.
people just call him playa as a result.
What a loser.
This kind of wraps up in this episode with Daniel calling the cops due to his missing baseball cards. And you get to the apartment, and like the cops look at his car. They look at the fact that there's like this clear like chunk of missing debris where the couch was obviously pushed, and they're like, something's not right here, and they're on to him. But the thing is, Daniel just really cares about these baseball cards. He did not think of the consequences of calling the cops.
Yeah. And it got me really thinking that this guy's fucked at the end of this episode, because we've seen that Mike is extremely competent at what he does. He usually knows what to do in these situations. And the last time we saw Mike talking to police officers, he would not say a word to them. He's just lawyer, lawyer, lawyer.
Yeah.
And then you contrast that here where Daniel has two police officers and he immediately tells them
All the
everything.
wrong things. There's this point where he's about to talk about all the money that was stolen, but he like veers away from it last second.
That's not important. That's not important.
Yeah. So in season 1, Nacho says that he likes going after criminals because they have no recourse, which makes sense.
Ooh,
However,
he does that here.
Daniel's such an idiot where he tries to go to recourse, which is what messes up the situation. Where like a smart criminal would not call the cops, so that's a clean deal. But for Nacho, this idiot calls the cops, and that's kind of the mess that we're gonna have to tackle on the next episode.
So I thought this whole arc here was going to be the entire like kind of like Phoenix Wright arc we were going to have to go through and like have to go through law and trial and all that. But I think
bitch, episode 2 cobbler, let's go.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to start here with Jimmy's side. Also add in some Chuck in there, where the opening scene is Chuck playing on the piano. Howard delivers the groceries and says hi, delivers the news that Jimmy joined Davis and Maine, which really perplexes and kind of angers Chuck to hear. Howard, however, in the scene admits that Howard and Kim were the ones that got Jimmy into Davis and Maine, and Howard said, I told him the truth. I told him everything like that's honest about Jimmy, but I did not stand in the way. So Howard did help Jimmy get that job, but he can't admit it to Chuck because deep down inside, he knows the truth about Chuck and Jimmy, and it's just cool to see how Howard's kind of always been in between these brothers, but he's never had any negative feelings about Jimmy unless like Jimmy's directly being an asshole to him, which happens from time to time.
Swine fucker.
Yeah, he calls him pig fucker, I believe.
Yeah.
We get a meeting between Kim and Jimmy.
I wanted to, something I noticed in this scene with Chuck is that there's a lot of like blurry effects on Chuck. Like it starts out blurred looking at him, and then it fades in, and then like we get this weird reflection of them on like this steel surface. And it's all very blurry, and like you just barely. Is it a steel surface? It's something I can't tell what it is because of the resolution. But it's like he's like all blurred out, like he kind of like there's just like multiple faces of him, and then this scene ends with like him sitting back on the table looking at the metronome and being blurred back in or blurred out again.
Let's put this scene in our pocket because this Chuck in a piano scene, when I first watched it, I felt like I was missing something on what was going on there, and that is the truth because you don't really understand kind of like the particulars of the scene until like episode 5 or 6. So we're gonna hold on to this one for
I know
the future.
One thing about the piano. I think it's the same episode where we see like the head douche at Davison, Maine playing his guitar, right?
Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting that like the 2 shot callers at these respective firms both have a scene in this episode with them playing an instrument.
Interesting that you call Cliff Maine a douche. We'll touch on that.
Well, I don't know. I was just using it douchebag as a general term for male human being.
Okay. Wow, very fair. Kim gives Jimmy a world's second best lawyer, and then she just says, "Just keeping it real." They're so cute.
Yeah.
My OTP. Jimmy, go.
The scene where Kim gets to the meeting room early and switches the seating arrangements.
Yeah, very cute. So Jimmy gets his company car. In this scene where he's like switching off his car, when the older car, the one that he had in season 1, is getting like picked up, we're on a Dutch angle, which is crooked, and crooked imagery is a very common thing in this show. And the car that he gets in return is a very nice car, but notably, his new cup that he just got from Kim doesn't fit in the cup holder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a little bit on the nose, I feel, but at the same time, it's like, okay.
I think it's excellent. I think it's perfect.
I think it's cool.
Subtleties for cowards, Joe, and you're
absolutely right. And themes are for 8th graders.
And I am an 8th grader. Yeah. So Jimmy's at work. He's seems to be doing a pretty good job. He goes to visit Cliff, who's playing the guitar. Cliff is saying everyone needs a way to decompress, and like, yeah, Jimmy's just going at it. Hope so. That thing about everyone needs a way to decompress. It feels like Jimmy's way to decompress is breaking rules, as we're gonna see in these next few episodes. That is what makes him comfortable.
Yeah, because it's after he always seems kind of at his happiest after he's successfully pulled off a scheme. He's like, yeah, I'm the shit.
Yeah, and it came up in the conversation he had with Kim the previous episode, where all the things he likes about being a lawyer, which is like being crafty and helping people and also conning people, he doesn't have to be a lawyer to do that. But he's good at it. We can see here that he is.
I feel like I'm gonna let my brain cook for a hot minute here. Like Jimmy, you're right. Jimmy likes to one up the other person and prove to the other person that can outwit him or out clever him or do whatever. But it's like Jimmy doesn't like the rules are involved with being in part of a lawyer law practice kind of deal. He thinks that it's not fun, it's restrictive, and it feels like, for lack of a better term, restricts his creative freedom to get out of a situation or to help someone else get out of the situation.
Yeah, that's very explicitly kind of the conflict here that's bubbling up. You could say that it's a cup that doesn't fit in a cup holder, so to say.
Yeah.
The final scene here in these Jimmy scenes is Chuck invading the work meeting, which is kind of prefaced by, like, they're going through the work meeting between HHM and Davis and Maine, and Chuck shows up. They have to pick up all the electronics, which is like such a clear signal of doom for this scene.
Yeah.
And so Chuck just tells Jimmy that he's here to bear witness, and he just kind of steals the moment. And I like how for Jimmy to get his composure back, he relies on Kim. It's not until she kind of gives him some reassurance that he's able to kind of do his job in front of Chuck, who's clearly there to be an antagonizing force to him.
Yep.
And that's pretty much all the Jimmy stuff. On the Mike and Daniel front, Daniel arrives at the police station, much to Mike's dismay, and he asks Mike for help. Mike doesn't want to help, but I feel like when he brings up that the sentimental value of the baseball cards, because some of them were his dad's, I feel like that's what gets Mike to crack a little bit.
Yeah.
Y'all got the same impression? Because you have to wonder why Mike would decide to help this idiot, but
I feel like it's the idea of, like, I think because I think he's now thinking about, like, well, if my son got into this situation, I would probably help him out.
Exactly,
because of that
yeah.
personality. And I feel like he has that guilt because of basically he corrupted his son, and it's what got him killed.
Exactly. Mike has that soft spot because as tough as he seems, he's a walking guilt machine over his son, which we're really going to explore, I think, next episode, how about Mike's guilt over that and how far he'll go to kind of try to right those wrongs. But we get the introduction to Nacho's family business as Mike visits in order to talk to Nacho. Nacho's dad's very nice man. He confronts him about Daniel, and Daniel, he talks the deal between the two where Daniel can trade the cards for the car. And this scene, Nacho is so charismatic. He wasn't in a lot in season 1, but he's already been quite a bit in these episodes here.
I really like Nacho.
Yeah, I think everyone who watches this show is just like, I don't know why, but Nacho is like one of my favorites.
Just seems very scary to me.
Yeah, like he's scary, but he's very cool-headed, and I like it.
And it's kind of, he's very much the opposite of Tuco from y'all's description, where Tuco goes off the wall and it gets fairly violent really fast. So we see that especially in episode 4 at the ending there.
Go ahead.
Right? But the thing
we'll save it.
Yeah, but the thing about Nacho is, like, Nacho thinks through his decision-making process and really kinds of find the situation that's going to be the best for him. It doesn't, like, necessarily try to he tries to cut his loose ends. Essentially, he tries to like not overstep his boundaries. He's just a lot more methodical.
Yeah,
than
yeah.
Tuco.
I'd say he's reserved. And if
Yeah.
I had to deal with a criminal, I wish it would be Nacho. I think we'd
At
be
the same
friends
time-
after we're all squared out.
At the same time, I wouldn't want to be with Nacho because I'd be afraid that he's always playing something, or he's always kind of looking for that, like when you have your back turned and no bodyguard and he sneaks into your car to steal your address kind of situation.
Yeah.
Like, he's looking for every small opportunity to gain one-ups on you.
Yeah, but at least you won't fucking break your legs. So.
I guess, but like
there's an honor in that, and also he's so protective over his dad when Mike shows up, where it's like that's always an admirable trait.
it's true.
So these episodes combine here as the Mike storyline requires Jimmy's help. So Jimmy saves Daniel with the brilliant cobbler plan, and this scene is just hysterical. It's so good.
And we all know what squat cobbler means.
You know what squat cobbler
Don't
is.
act like you don't know what it means.
It's like Hellman's mayonnaise. Maybe it has a different name west of the Rockies. There's just so many good lines. And Daniel has to make a video where he sits in pie and cries, and I mean he gets out of the situation. And you know Kim shows up, or Jimmy shows up, and he's kind of flirting with Kim. He brought pie, and the details of their little operation come out, and Kim is not happy.
So I think what's interesting here is, from the context in which you can look, is that Kim is aware that Jimmy lied to the police about the videos themselves, and she was okay with that, but she wasn't okay once he forged the videos. That seems the line to be crossed.
And I think a particular reason for that, and this is maybe just me stroking myself on she's a metaphor for the law theory, is that
Stroke it, baby.
like saying that lie in the interrogation room isn't actually illegal, but fabricating evidence is. So maybe that's why she didn't like that part of
Let's
it.
walk it back a little bit. Kim just conned someone the previous episode. She didn't cash the
damn.
check or anything.
Yeah.
But she was conning people with Jimmy. But none of that was illegal. It was just morally wrong.
Right.
But when Jimmy says that he committed a felony, basically, or like a forgery of evidence, Kim draws the line right there, and she says, Jimmy, if you're going to do this, you cannot let me hear about it.
Yeah.
And Jimmy says, okay, you won't. These are two very telling lines. One, Jimmy, I know you're going to do this, but you can't tell me about it, is her side. And Jimmy's side is, yes, I will do this. You won't hear about it. None of them, like, she doesn't ask him to stop, and he's very well aware of himself.
And it's kind of like a weird now situation where you kind of want to ask yourself, is Kim like morally repulsed at the fact that he's breaking the law, or is she trying to cover herself from being tied to Jimmy any which way? Like, could she possibly have plausible deniability?
What are you thinking? What's your theory?
Right now, I'm on the plausible deniability route for things. I feel like for example, when we see later in the video, she gets more upset with the fact that he went over their heads rather than the contents of the actual video, and that's kind of like the big thing there. And that it ended up trickling down to her and screwing herself.
Bradley, do you have a take on this?
Not particularly yet.
Okay. I won't say anything because I'm not on the same page as you, Joe, but I won't say why.
That's fine.
That's fine. Because episode 3 is Amarillo, and we're going to talk about
it in this episode?
Yeah, I think that's all the scenes and all the storylines.
Yeah, I like the fact that Nacho works on an upholstery
Yeah.
thing.
Nacho's family business is nice.
It's fairly sweet. I just think that's kind of neat.
Yeah, I like his dad a lot.
I do too. Reminds me of your dad.
You've never...
All right.
I think that's racist. I don't know. All right, Amarillo means yellow, by the way.
It's
It's also a city
in Texas.
a city where this episode kind of takes place, where Jimmy solicits the old folks as they're going to like a old folk dinner at like a
So,
white
yeah.
person place, you know.
Hey, that's racist.
Yeah, I know. I got a freebie from you.
I feel like I just got kicked in the
I,
balls.
I really like this scheme. I also love the opening shot where he's standing by the Texas flag. He just looks great. Also, I think he's on a street corner, if I'm not mistaken, which Joe has opened my eyes into corners and crooked streets and such.
Yeah, there's a shot later in these series of episodes that I really, really liked. It's in this episode.
I unfortunately, every picture I took was I messed up every picture I took for the evidence, where the first half is like this one picture I had of like Jimmy from episode 10, and then the second half is the picture I try to take. I just fucked up. Anyways, when Jimmy was getting in his car, he looks up and he sees a sunroof, and then he kind of grimaces because that he has bad experiences with sunroofs. Anyways, this was a nice scheme by Jimmy, still illegal.
Yeah, this is where the interesting kind of, I feel like there's a big kind of like question going around about the morality versus good morals versus the law and that kind of balance.
Yeah.
Because it's as we continue in this episode, we realize Jimmy's having trouble reaching out to these people because it's entirely possible but not proven that the Sandpiper people are throwing out their letters to these residents.
Yeah, it's very likely. I mean, we saw them shredding evidence a couple episodes ago.
Right. And so it's kind of like the question is like, if someone's fighting dirty, how do you fight back kind of thing? And like,
unfortunately, you have to play by the rules.
Yeah.
Unless you're Saul or Jimmy.
Yeah. The thing is, like, the thing about this bus is that, like, I'm not entirely against it.
Because hear me, like, these people are getting scammed.
Yeah.
Like, Jimmy and old folks, like, as much as, like, he's conned other people, his practice with old folks is very wholesome and genuine. Yeah. And he's never really overcharged them. He's always worked well for them. Like, yeah.
He's also, like, it's not like he's going in and trying to like scam them out of their money. He's like genuinely doing his job in terms of like, I have to get people to sign up for this thing because it backs us up in evidence and backs us up in backers and just makes us more powerful. So it's just a weird, but at the same time, you can't just be going around and like
soliciting.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, Chuck grills him over this. In the meeting, and it sucks that Chuck is such a dick about it, but he's also super right.
Yeah.
And Jimmy backs off. He's like, I'll find another way. And then he goes to play footsies with Kim, but she refuses in a horrible, shocking twist.
Yeah. Biggest betrayal in all of Better Call Saul.
I like the imagery of their footsies as like their approval during these meetings.
Yeah. It made me cry and made me stop watching the episode for 2 weeks.
Damn.
Yeah.
Next notable scene here in this Jimmy storyline is Jimmy approaching Cliff for the commercial. Cliff is open to the idea. The commercial they ran in the past was extremely dry, so Jimmy has to brainstorm something different.
Yeah.
It's made very clear, though, that a lot of work went into that first commercial. Which I think that's the key point to the conflicts that are going to go here in the future.
Yeah.
Filming the commercials, the birth of Jimmy's commercial skills, which we see in Better Call Saul.
The thing about that first commercial, it's like oh god,
I've seen commercials like that first commercial.
No, I have mesothelioma. It's like Jimmy realizes that everything is done by committee. I think that's the kind of almost the big takeaway. I feel that, or like the first sign that Jimmy's starting to realize in this whole practice deal, is that everything is decided by committee, and like it needs to get approved by everyone before it goes out, and it has to be entirely PC, or possibly couldn't like insult anybody. And I think that's kind of like bullet or a wound or like a screw that's being tied in Jimmy's head is like why he doesn't like working at this kind of job or business. Or the first nail in that coffin.
I feel like first and foremost, though. I mean, we'll get to it in the future. Let me move on to the next scenes here.
Yeah.
Filming the actual commercial, I like how Jimmy's overprotective over the Alpine Shepherd boy here. When
Yeah,
they're,
I really
looking
like
around
that
the
too
house.
because he like respects it, you know.
He respects the fact that it means something to. I forgot the old lady's name, but we've seen her in the past.
Yeah.
She was like his first big client. In his elder practice, so like that's really cute. And she's like, "Mr. McGill, I'm ready for my close up."
Yeah.
Very very wholesome. And then the idea to use the little chair as the dolly is cool.
It took me a little bit when I was watching the because when they shot the video, I'm like, I thought the whole thing was that she was going to be in the chair and record her from going on the chair to like build even more sentimentality. But then it took me a while. I was like, oh, they used it as a dolly.
The opposite, yeah.
Yeah.
When go ahead.
I like the Alpine Shepherd board because it kind of just further backs the idea that Jimmy legitimately cares about the people that he's representing.
Yeah.
And he's very much fighting against the man. From his point of view when it comes to this stuff.
Jimmy and Saul love to fight the man. They love to get victories from bigger opponents than them.
Yeah.
So Jimmy and Kim watch the commercial. Jimmy hides the fact that he didn't get full approval, and he does not ask Cliff for permission before he sends it out that morning.
Yeah.
Which leads to the tense reception scene where they're waiting for the phones to ring. But it all goes extremely well. So it's kind of like heartbreaking because this was a great commercial. Jimmy executed it super well, but as he's watching the movie later in the episode, he gets the call from Cliff, who's absolutely furious. Mm-hmm. And I think this was a moment where I was like, wow, this plot line about Aryan commercial is really gripping me. I think that's a strength of the show, where like in any other show, this would be a really mundane storyline.
Yeah.
But it's saying so much about the characters.
Yeah. I'm going to just snip this little thing out real quick. Boot, doot, 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 doot. I guess you could call it evidence. I just really like this shot with Jimmy right here and Kim, because Jimmy is like kind of at this is starting to everything that Jimmy did is coming to light, or like what he did is coming to light.
But Kim's in the dark.
Yeah.
Oh, and Kim's in the dark, dude.
And it's another corner shot. My God, they love these corners where one side is darker than the other.
I feel like it's a theme where like you're just one corner turn away from like going to the dark side or from being found out or like
So that's a good fucking shot.
Yeah, I really liked it. And you have Kim, whose back is turned, like can't even like see or hear Jimmy, and she's just entranced by this.
Life.
Yeah. I just immediately saw that. Says like, oh hey, look, it's one of those things I liked.
The movie they're watching is something like Ice Zebra Station, which Bradley, that is Saul's laundering like bank account company.
All right.
In like Breaking Bad, it comes up like once or twice. The deepest pulls here.
Also, this is a story about a sinking submarine or a sinking ship. So,
God. Surely that doesn't mean anything. What is y'all's take on this whole commercial fiasco then?
So,
like, because from what you guys were saying, you guys are mad that in the next episode, Cliff and Maine and the partners are pissed at Jimmy.
Well, so like I thought when I finished this episode, I thought they were gonna be angry at him for a different reason than the reason they gave. And when they gave that reason, I was like, okay, that makes sense.
What did you think was gonna happen?
I originally thought they were just like, man, like they didn't like the commercial at all, and that the commercial just kind of like
too colorful.
It's too colorful, and they wouldn't be seen as like an actual legal practice or just boring legal practice kind of thing. And I'm just like, I can't decide with Jimmy on here because you have to figure out a way to market yourself to get your clients and everything. And everything he did was above the belt.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? In episode 1, he says, every time I do something right, it blows up in my face. And it's kind of heartbreaking when you see it like this. He just can't function in a manner where he's doing right.
Yeah.
Bradley, what's your take?
My take on the whole situation, I thought I thought everybody, including Jimmy, was a little bit of an asshole here because, like, you're new at this job. Like, obviously, you should run this plan by somebody, right? Yeah. You know, he didn't ask permission, and this is like something that you would obviously ask permission for. But at the same time, I also think like these guys are. It's rightful for them to be mad because he didn't ask permission to do this, but I think they're a little too angry considering the results it got.
I think also it's like, once again, because, well, I don't want to talk about this until we get to season 4 because it just kind of adds that.
You keep saying season 4. I wish we were in season 4, man.
Episode 4.
Yeah,
because,
save it.
Yeah.
I got something to say about it. I am fully on Team Cliff and Maine here.
Okay.
I think it's so easy because Jimmy's lovable and he's a caring guy and he likes who he's funny and he cares about the people he works for and works with. But when you're a company as big as Davis and Maine, and you can tell they're big, their office is massive. They're able to seamlessly get him a Coco Bolo desk. They're going the distance to make sure he's comfortable. Mm-hmm. And the point that they bring up is like, we have built a very careful reputation over years. Like, many decisions have been made to make sure our company has the right reputation. And reputation matters because you can tell that, like, Howard works to stay on charge of the reputation of HHM because of Chuck's condition. Like, Howard has to go the extra mile to make sure that, like, HHM is, like, in the best light possible. So right. Jimmy shows up within a week and does something that could potentially harm their business and their name brand. And, like, it didn't. Like, I'm sure the commercial went great, but the idea of ladder hopping the way he did, or jumping the ladder, and you as a project manager, Joe, in the past, you should really, like,
no.
feel angry here.
I'm not disagreeing with you. Like, yeah. I fully agree that there should be words to be had, and there should be kind of, like, a discussion to be made, and, like, kind of, they should be angry at him, because I would be, too.
At the same time.
I agree. They 100% should be angry. I was mad that it's like they didn't even recognize the results that did happen.
But like it's a weird kind of balancing act where it's, if I was a manager like in this position, I would almost do like a bluff angry kind of act thing where like, I'm mad at this and everything, but like on the inside I'm like, okay, what he did was good, which is a good sign, but I need him to not just fucking skip over me.
The crushing part though, and that's why the show's so fantastic,
yeah,
is that had Jimmy gone through committee, their result wouldn't have been this good. Like, they would have changed things.
No. That was what I was trying to get
he gave to. It's unfortunate, right? Like, they're totally in the right, but reality is cruel sometimes, where because of the red tape, there's no way that they could have gotten as much of a response.
There's an episode in season 4. I mean, there's a scene in episode 4. God damn it, I'm going up a level of terms. But there's a scene in episode 4 where Jimmy's getting yelled at, and they're like, there was a 2-to-1 vote to fire you. Like, everything has to be done through committee. And even during that scene where the guy's talking about the television's like commercial, he's like, oh, I wanted Carl or whatever, really wanted that tone to be this color.
This blue.
Yeah, and it's just like, and you're right. And that's the thing that Jimmy realizes, that he doesn't have that creative freedom to do what he wants, even when working with, because now he's not only working within the law, he's working within the law and the law of the office, you know?
Law. Yeah, the law and the office culture. Let's switch gears because we got to talk a little bit about the Mike storyline in this episode, which I found a little bit interesting here. So you get a lot of scenes of Mike playing with Kaylee. They're usually just there to, like, build some rapport because Kaylee is Mike's motivation in Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
And she's cute. He's, like, buying her a new toy. And he's giving Stacy money, and Stacy's just like, I don't know where this money's coming from, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
Which, like, we gotta talk about Stacy sometime, but maybe not now.
I wanted to bring that up.
It's kind of weird.
It is kind of weird.
But this is also in line with her character because she's like, I don't care who killed Maddie.
This way. Imagine if Jimmy never told Kim about any of the stuff he did. And which is like, hey, I'm a great lawyer. I do all these things, you know? Like, I feel like that's almost the reaction we get from Kim, where Kim doesn't question how Jimmy's doing these things so well. Yeah. It's just that he's doing it. And I think it's it's kind of like almost like, this is what happens when you have a character that does his best to hide what he's doing from these people.
And yeah, Kim and Stacy are both kind of ignorant and accepting of the people that their other character is.
Yeah.
So this toy that Mike gives Kaylee here, Bradley, is the same one he uses on the door in Breaking Bad, where like it wiggles around and distracts that one assassin.
Dude,
It's like in season 5, but then he shows up behind him.
all these throwbacks
all these
or
throwbacks.
throw forwards.
But I think the main through line of the scene here, though, is that Stacy is hearing sounds and it's just stressing her out because she just wants to be in a safe place. She's kind of paranoid. You can just tell it's like she just wants to be in someplace better. So Mike stakes out the house. He sees that there is no real gunshots or danger, but the paranoia remains, and she can't sleep. So Mike knows the truth, but he also doesn't want to tell her. It's like, oh, hey, I stalked the house all night. There wasn't a danger. So what does he do? He instead just works himself to the bone to be able to afford a better place for Stacy and Kaylee. And I said that Mike was a walking guilt machine, and I think this episode really highlights the length at which Mike will go to atone for his sins. Where he's staying up all night, he's spending the night there, and he's taking jobs with the vet who he slowly throughout the seasons and episodes we've seen so far, Mike is like, I don't want to do anything too dangerous, and he's ramping up to be able to provide for his family.
So what about this part with the tree and it's the notch in it? Is it just there's like a scene where Stacy calls Mike over and says there's something wrong, and he comes over and she says like, look, it's a gunshot kind of thing.
A tree, that's part of the house. What do you mean a tree?
It might be part of the house.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Well, that's the thing. It's just a chip, but she's freaking out. Like she's just kind of losing it. She's paranoid, and Mike knows it's nothing. But the thing is, he doesn't care. He just wants them to be happy.
Yeah.
So he's not gonna try to argue out of there. And a secret job comes from Mike. Ooh, I wonder who it is. Who did y'all think?
I bet it's Walter Whitney.
Yeah, I didn't actually know what to expect here. I was surprised when Nacho popped
It's
up.
Nacho. The boys are back.
I was like, part of me was like, oh, is this where we meet Gus? But
Who the
No.
fuck is Gus?
Who is
you'll
Gus, I
find
wonder?
out.
Well, all right. Okay, the season 2 naming convention is if you shuffle all the names or all the episode titles, it says Fring is back. And that'll mean something to Bradley.
Okay.
And not you, Joe. You don't get to get meaning.
Yay!
Episode 4, we're going to wrap it off with Gloves Off. We're going to start with Jimmy and end with Mike here, which seems fitting.
Yep.
So Jimmy's side is he's showing the commercial to the board. It's not really working, or it's not about it working. It's the fact that Jimmy was jumping the chain of command. Jimmy continuously tries to sell the idea, but it's the carelessness with the brand that's the problem. We've already talked about this.
Yeah, this is basically the scene I wanted to save to discuss it, but it's fine. It's basically just like it's just tightening the screws on Jimmy's like, I think, stress level and wanting to break out from these barriers and boundaries.
Notably here, though, is that Kim is getting fallout for this, which is cruel of Howard to do to her, but not fully unreasonable.
Yeah, it's
because Howard and Kim stuck their neck out to get Jimmy this job, and very quickly he's already starting fires.
Yeah, well, it's like my personal opinion on this is like, I don't know, like it's like, you have to mind your own business kind of deal, and like I think there's a point where you can go like, hey, we told you, like even Howard says like I told him everything, but I didn't get in their way. So it's not necessarily up to Howard to police Jimmy or Kim to police Jimmy. It's up to Jimmy to police himself.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things where it's like, I feel like this is a little bit too unjustified, in my opinion, but that's just my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when it comes to these big firms, your word is your bond, and your referrals are really important. So it's a level higher than we would really be thinking of when.
Yeah, I can see why they'd be really upset, because they like Joe said, like they really put their their own reputation on the line by recommending him.
It's like every plot thread we've been talking about, there's two sides to every coin, and like they've all been fairly reasonable.
Yeah,
And that's what kind of hurts about it.
Yeah, I mean, once again, like I can understand like bringing down the sick on people, but at the same time, there's kind of like this is a bit too far, maybe. But
we'll see how it goes. Jimmy goes on to confront Chuck about the mistreatment of Kim. He's still following all the electricity rules as he enters the house, so he still has that respect for his brother. Chuck is just writhing on the couch because he's been overworking himself, but he's been overworking himself to watch Jimmy. So it's kind of like this tragic thing where Jimmy is caring for him, and it's like I'm only in this situation because I can't have you. I have to witness you being a lawyer. I can't have you ruining this. I don't trust you.
Yeah.
When Jimmy sleeps there, when Chuck and Jimmy wake up, there's a slight rebonding. This is the first scene they've really had together since episode 9 of season 1, where they had that explosion with the slipping Jimmy with a law degrees like a chimp with a machine gun.
Yeah, they even reference it back here.
Yeah. Howard is the one pushing Kim, or punishing Kim, not Chuck, which Jimmy thinks it was Chuck, but it's actually Howard doing it on his own. Chuck denies this having anything to do with Jimmy, and for once he's somewhat right. It turns into a lecture of Jimmy breaking the rules and dragging her down. Chuck refuses to extort Jimmy and refuses to go down to his level, which is something Jimmy tries to pull. And then at the end, Chuck just completely dismantles Jimmy by just calling him out on justifiably all the bullshit that he's been pulling. Thoughts on this explosive scene?
No.
All right. Bradley?
I mean, it was really tense, and to me, this scene was just kind of more of showing how much Kim really means to Jimmy.
Yeah.
That's what I was. I think, like you said going into this is a scene where kind of a lot of the threads over the past few episodes are coming together.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what I was most focused on.
Yeah.
Is like, what is Jimmy willing to give up to help her?
I will add a couple of things to what Chuck says. He has a scathing line where it's like, you clearly don't need my help tanking your career. But he also compares Jimmy to an alcoholic with a problem. And, you know, like, Chuck is such an asshole, but he's right so many times. It's really painful to admit it. And like Bradley said, Jimmy is having this fight for Kim's sake.
Kimmy.
Slippin' Kimmy.
I'd like to slip in Kimmy.
Oh, God.
Cease.
Objection.
Yes, me too. Objection. I agree. Hey, Rhea Seaborn is an attractive lady.
I just feel like this scene for me, it just kind of reaffirms everything else that's been happening in the past 4 episodes.
Yeah.
Where like Jimmy's big motivation for everything is still Kim. Like he's even to the point where like it's like just I'll stop being a lawyer if it means Kim will be happy again. Like it's kind of
he's like, extort me, Chuck, and I won't be a lawyer as long as Kim's happy. So he's kind of like trying to show that Chuck is not as righteous as he is, and also trying to save Kim in one move. It's very selfless, and also asshole-ish of Jimmy.
Yeah. It's just I don't know. Like it's just one of those things. I'm like, okay, cool. It just reinforces a lot of the other stuff we've seen in the past few episodes.
More importantly, it's reinforcing that, but bringing it back into a Chuck and Jimmy conflict. You know, because Chuck and Jimmy have been pretty separated, aside from the scenes where they're kind of going against each other. But these scenes when they're in the house alone talking are some of the best dialogue and character scenes in the show. And we're noticing here that everything kind of goes back and ties into them. So, worth keeping in mind.
It feels like it's almost like the base of the conflict for the entire show is between these two.
Almost, huh?
Yeah.
Almost. It's almost like we've had an antagonist underneath our noses all along.
Not anymore. He's like right here now.
Yeah. We'll talk about Chuck as an antagonist in the future. Because, man, he's actually like maybe my favorite antagonist in fiction. It's like him and Yoshikage Kira. Because of the way
each other fixed.
just going at it in a room with no electricity.
Yeah.
And a lot of hands.
A lot of hands.
A lot of hands. Okay. that wraps up the Jimmy portion, but we got to talk about Mike because Mike had some shit going on this episode.
It was a good Mike episode.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
The cold open is Mike coming home and he looks battered. What were your thoughts, gentlemen?
I thought whatever he was going to do already happened.
Yes, which is true.
Which is technically true, but we end up it's a flash forward rather than it's a flash forward and then we go back, whatever. So I thought like going forward that we would slowly get revealed what would happen to Mike and whatever, but now we're just gonna learn about it. I'm like, okay.
So the next big Mike scene is Mike and Nacho discussing the assassination on Tuco, which is what Nacho needs. This is a pretty big deal because Tuco can't be finding out about Nacho's side business, and also Tuco is just a horrible person to work with, so the fact that Nacho is willing to assassinate him is pretty dire. But Mike picks apart pretty much every step of Nacho's plan, which on paper sounds like a decent plan, but this is Mike's strength. Mike is so good at picking apart a plan and then building his own, and that's really his strength as a criminal. And that's no surprise to me and Bradley because like we've always known Mike as kind of like a criminal mastermind when it comes to schemes and plans and such.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to Nacho also. Like he's constantly just waiting and looking for windows or doors to open before he makes his move. He doesn't like force them open. Like he's gonna just try to glide in there as like swiftly as he can.
And this is the one time where he kind of has to be proactive about it. And you can see he's out of his depth, actually.
Yeah.
Because like you're saying, he's really good at taking opportunities, but now that he's got to kind of be proactive and get Tuco out of the way, he's leaving a lot of blind gaps because he's rushing for it.
Yeah, and I think also like it's very interesting because you can tell that Tuco can sense an opportunity almost, like that's his ability. Like he can just be like,
Nacho?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Nacho can sense like an opportunity. Like he's like, I know I can work with something with this Mike fellow after talking to him, or something. Like,
there's a bond there in criminalness.
It's a bond, and it kind of just adds to that factor that Nacho can read the room and be like, there's something I can extort from this situation.
Yeah, I like that. Your takes are great.
Yeah.
Nacho also tells the story about how he got a scar where Tuco just shotgunned a guy in the face, and his skull is now embedded in his shoulder. And he mentions in that story that Tuco kind of liked that guy. So just imagine the things he would do to someone he hates.
Yeah.
You got Mike buying guns from the gun salesman who was also present in Breaking Bad.
Oh, really? Cool.
The scene doesn't strictly say it, but we discover here that Mike was a sniper in Vietnam.
Nice.
Which is the point at which Mike changes his mind. And you can tell he's a sniper in Vietnam because he's looking at the Mosin Nagant, and he's like, yeah, they should have probably figured out about the warping metals before they sent people into the jungle with it.
Yeah.
Very good show don't tell with very cool dialogue cues.
I think well, number one, I'm glad all these NPCs are coming back from the previous game into this game.
It's true. The NPCs are back.
Yeah. I just think it's also like did Mike kill a lot of people in Breaking Bad?
Bradley, what would you say?
I mean, how do you define a lot? What is a lot when you think?
Mike kills at least 15 to 20 people, I think, throughout the course of Breaking Bad. Well,
Does he kill more people on screen than anyone else?
I mean, there's that scene where he just takes out that place where like Chow is working. He very strongly threatens to kill Lydia. He's like, I don't care if your daughter finds you. Like, Mike is a dog in Breaking Bad. He will kill as needed, and that's it.
So I don't know. This might be just me trying to like. I was just kind of looking at this and hearing y'all talk.
You're onto something though, because he's doing so much to not kill right now.
Right. He feels like he's like almost like he's just like it's like there has to be another way to do this kind of thing, and I can't either tell if it's a moral line that he's not willing to cross again, or it's B, it's like, no, this isn't the right way to do it. That's just dumb. Because like that was the other thing with Tuco, is that like the first plan was that if he shot and killed Tuco, he was fucked.
Yeah, he had no escape.
Yeah.
There's a couple things to note with Mike and killing. He killed those two cops, but that was a revenge killing, and that kind of destroyed him for a bit.
It felt justified in his
Yeah.
moral views.
But I think it's the moment where he starts thinking about the war, and this
Yeah,
is all in
that
the
was-
subtext.
Yeah,
Then he
it was-
changes his mind, and he's like, killing should not be something done lightly.
Yeah, and like I could definitely tell when he picks up that sniper, he's looking down, and he's just like, because you realize that I think in his head, from what I can see, it's like this is the gun that would work, but I think
But-
he has to, he thinks about it's like, but I don't think it's just the best move possible.
It's the gun that could work, but also like this isn't war. Maybe like
Yeah.
like there's so much subtext and acting and Jonathan Banks there. So
And yeah, and like, and I think you also have to think back to the whole Salamanca thing, and like how much more attention does that draw, and how much more consequences does that draw towards you, and like you have to think about like, it's because think about it to the first scene of this episode this season where Jimmy doesn't open the or
open
Gene
the door. Yeah.
doesn't open the door because there could be even a slight chance that he gets interrogated and then he gets found out.
Yeah.
So it's kind of relating back to that. It's like there's a slight chance that this thing could happen. Even if it's so small, I should just probably avoid it anyways because it's not worth it if it does happen.
Indeed. Finally, the last scene is Tuco is counting Crazy Eight's money. Bradley, I'm sure you remember Crazy Eight.
My boy.
I like how he's literally wearing green in this scene to show how new he is into the game, because he's like, Nacho, nice to see you, Don Hector. He's like so proper and nice.
Yeah.
I don't know who this person is.
Let's
I don't know
just
what's gonna
say
happen to
let's just say that like everyone you've met has been killed by one person. Like one person ruins the life of pretty much every character you've met in this show.
Isn't Mike?
It's not Mike. Mike's life is ruined. In every character's life is ruined by a character you don't know.
Is it Slug Boy?
It's Slug Boy.
A character I don't know?
It's Walter White.
Oh, okay.
Walter White ruins every. This whole show just shows that there was a whole world before Walter White got there, and then by the end of the show, there is no more world.
Oh.
And it kind of repaints how you look at that show by the end.
Walter White, Eater of Worlds.
As he's known. Ego the Living Planet. So Mike pulls out this really massive plan to get Tuco out of the way, where he like just fumbles his way into knocking into his car and getting Tuco to fight him in public. And cops show up, and there's guns involved, and Tuco, the crazy asshole, goes in for another punch at the end, and he's laughing while he does it, which is just so Tuco. And it's like, you gotta feel bad for Nacho, because you gotta imagine he has to put up with so much of this bullshit that Tuco pulls. Like, this dude is willing to fight people in front of the cops. Like, what do you think he's willing to do in drug trades?
I think it's really interesting. Oh, and okay, getting to your question first. Probably blow their heads off with a shotgun and have their skulls being embedded into your right-hand man.
Probably.
He's a crazy man.
Yeah.
Bradley, you know everything about Tuco. What's his shoe size?
14. He got some big motherfuckers.
Yo, Tuco looking like a Kingdom Hearts character out here.
But so this scene where they're standing outside and Tuco's like trying to extort Mike from his money that's in his wallet. You can, if you watch the background, you can see Nacho like fidgeting. He checks his watch. He's like looking down the street.
He's like, I can't
like-
believe this is gonna work. Like,
Or like not even that it can't work. It's going to work, but more of like Mike has to cause the fight before the police arrive.
yeah. And
He,
it needs
like-
to be dragged out until they arrive. So it's
Yeah.
a painful shit.
So it's like Mike has to time it in enough that that Mike just doesn't get his ass kicked and Tuco drives away, but also that like, you know, the fight doesn't start right as the police arrive, because then something suspect they could figure out more likely that something was happening.
Yeah, for sure. That wraps up episode 2-4. I should have asked y'all when we were about to begin the season, but y'all got any predictions for the next batch of episodes, which will be 3 next time, so it should be a little shorter.
I'm gonna read the titles and then go off of that.
Mike blows up the moon.
Okay.
Wow, you guys are great at this.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen.
I mean, that's fair.
Someone named Rebecca enters the scene.
Yes.
Mike and Jimmy go and have a conversation at a Hawaiian place or something, and then like gets roped into some business with Tuco, and Jimmy has to like represent Mike and like try to get him out of this whole fighting business and whatever. And then Jimmy has more conflicts with Davis and Maine, maybe to the point where he kind of gets a major probation period with them or something. I don't know.
Chuck's gonna turn himself into a pickle.
Oh, and then the end.
And I shit you not, Bradley. He turns himself into a pickle. It's the funniest episode of the show.
And then
We're done here.
I don't know. Okay, I was gonna say Mike has a heart attack at one point, but that might be later.
I mean, nah.
Nah.
Thank you for joining us in Journey with Jimmy.
Okay.
Until next time. Goodbye.